It should make it full screen and make it a little bit easier to see. For everybody, thank you for being my savior. Hey, thanks guys. I'm so sorry for this morning. All right, I'm running out of time, so I'm going to kick it off and get going. As has already been explained, my name is Kirsti. I am, if you would move to the next slide, please. I am the content lead at Commsor and the Community Club. Currently based in Cape Town, South Africa, as I mentioned, which is why I look so damn cold today. And yeah, I'm a former journalist, I'm a content creator and community evangelist. I've been working in community for about 3 years now. And obviously Commsor is a community-led company, so I am fully bought in. I'm so excited about community and I can't imagine working at a company that doesn't have one. I've seen the power of it firsthand, and you all have picked an amazing profession because it is so rewarding. If you'll move to the next slide, please. So I would argue that community managers are content creators. They are one and the same thing, because community content is anything that invites engagement and provides value in your community. And without content, there's not much going on in your community, right? So this could be anything from daily post, discussion thread, AMAs, ebooks, memes, events. Basically anything that you are creating within your community is community content. And this is something that I'm seeing more and more in the community world. We're seeing a lot of jobs where companies that really recognize and understand what community is are creating roles like community manager and content creator, or so, kind of double-barreled roles. So they're hiring based not only on the ability to manage a community, but also to create high-quality content. And as I've kind of already explained here, I think a lot of people hear content and they think, oh, blog posts, newsletters, YouTube videos. But that's not, it's everything. Everything you create is content within your community. And I think that seeing it that way is really powerful. So if you move to the next slide, please. What is community content? So let's unpack this a little more. Community content is first and foremost not marketing content. There's a big difference between marketing content and community content. And sometimes the line can be a bit blurred, but I think community content is content that leads with value, always. Marketing content is trying to get people to buy into value somewhere else. And this is changing a little bit in content marketing at the moment. I think people are seeing the value of leading with value up front, in building trust with brands and whatnot. But generally there is a difference. So for example, at Commsor, we build software for community managers. But our community is not a product community. The community club is a community of practice. So if we're kind of dumping product announcements in there and Commsor news, Commsor's just acquired another company or another, a software, like that's not for our community managers in the community. So community content is any content that is created with and or for community members to provide value and encourage members to stay and participate long term. So community content's ultimate goal is to generate positive, high value engagement. Basically, it makes your members stay, it keeps them coming back. And something I probably should have put on the slide is that it is also something that can entice you to join a community, right? I will bet money, not actual money, I'll bet my reputation on the fact that Community Leads Africa has gained a bunch of members with the summit, right? Because people are drawn in with high value content, which is exactly what they've created over the past 2 days. If you'll hit the next slide, please. So the food metaphors explained. Community content, I like to think, because I love food, right? So I like to think about community content with this very cool food analogy. And I will caveat by saying that this, the original metaphor was come up with by Noelle Flowers, who is the brains behind C School. She's a great community consultant. Definitely check her out. I think she's quite active on Twitter still and LinkedIn. And she's one of my original community mentors. But yeah, so she came up with this and it is awesome. And I kind of expanded on it and ran with it probably a little bit too much, but here we go. you'll hit the next slide, please. So the metaphor starts with, picture the scene. You've just arrived at a party. You're a little bit nervous. You don't know anyone. You don't kind of know what to do. Where's the safe place that you go, right? You find the food. You find the snack table because there are some pretzels there. There's some chips and dip. You know, it kind of gives you something to do, gives you a reason to be there. And it also kind of gives you an opening to connect with people, right? So like someone's hanging out by the chips with you, and you can be like, oh, love this. You know, I mean, that's a weak example, but it gives you an opening for conversation. Yeah, and so in the same way that every great party needs a snack table, every community needs a snack table of content. So the community snack table is valuable content within a community that brings people together, sparks discussion, and fosters a sense of belonging. So just like a new person in the party, a new person in the community, you know, you can kind of, you post, you kind of prompts to introduce themselves. That's content, right? A huge part of your onboarding is content. And, you know, maybe they don't feel comfortable introducing themselves just yet. Maybe they'll go into a channel or a discussion thread and see something that they're happy to weigh in on. That's their in. That's how they start making connections. That's how they start getting value from your community. Just like the chip and dip at a party. So if you'll hit the next slide, please. But yeah, so kind of it is an intimidating thing for me to stand up and say community managers are content creators and they're responsible for all the content that happens in the community. It's a big job. But what I like to do is I like to break it down into kind of three categories, three little buckets, food buckets, if you will. The first one is like nibbles. So this is your low effort, high frequency content. So stuff that doesn't take you a lot of time to do and you can do it often. So this could happen daily, every other day, 3 times a week, whatever makes sense for you. It's things like engagement prompts or simple rituals, maybe, you know, as I mentioned, prompting them to introduce themselves. So it's stuff that doesn't take a lot of effort and that you can do regularly. So other examples could be kickstarting a conversation with a simple question, tagging someone to respond to a thread, maybe starting a Monday accountability ritual thread where people can post their goals for the week. Whatever the case is, the options are endless. And this, I think there is definitely room to be, and I'll talk a little bit more about this later, but there's definitely room to be a lot more off the cuff with this than other content categories, right? So, for example, I mean, because they take so little effort to get out into the world, you can kind of spin one up within half an hour or 5 minutes, whatever the case is, and get it out into the world. But I would still argue that it is very helpful, especially when it comes to things like rituals, is to include these in your content calendar. So map them out beforehand. So you can't constantly be reactive. You need to be proactive in creating your community content. Next slide, please. So the next category is your hearty meals. This is your medium effort, medium frequency content that you'll be putting out into your community or into the world weekly, bi-monthly, monthly, whatever cadence makes sense. So this could be rituals that are slightly more effort, for example, a monthly hangout, or light-up events, also a hangout, Q&As, AMAs. This could even be things like the more kind of traditional content, like newsletters or blog posts, or even podcasts. And I know you're probably looking at podcasts and thinking, oh my gosh, no, that's high effort stuff. But being someone who's kind of just taken their first foray into the world of podcasts, it's actually not that hard. Especially a lot of podcasts. I mean, if you have a really well-structured podcast, you don't even have to edit it that much. A lot of great recording tools are free. You could literally host a live podcast via Zoom, download that recording, whatever the case is. Yeah, and I'll speak a bit more about this later, but something like a podcast or an event is really, really useful for content repurposing. So it doesn't just have to live in that format, but I'll speak about it a little bit later. And then once you have mapped out your hearty meals community content, next slide, please. You move on to your fancy treats. So I might be pushing the metaphor a little far here because some desserts are a lot easier to create than meals. But just bear with me here. This is why I tried to find a picture of a dessert that was slightly more complicated. But yeah, so this is your, Noel Flowers calls this your showstopper stuff. It is your high effort, low frequency content. So this is the kind of thing that you can only spin up annually or quarterly because it takes that much time and effort. Something like the summit that we are currently in. These content pieces or events take serious planning and prep work, months in the making. Some examples of things like this that we have done in Community Club are our annual summits, just like this one. And props to the guys at CLA because this is a lot of work. I know it is a lot of herding cats to pull something like this off. So well done to you guys for pulling off such a seamless event. Even when some of your presenters hop on and don't know how to share their slides. So yeah, and another thing that we've done, which is super valuable, I'll link to this at the end, is an engagement playbook, which took months and months and months of work, but it is such a high value piece of content for our members. It is a flagship resource that we offer to people, and I'll share the download link for you guys as well, because obviously it ties into the subject of this talk. But yeah, we interviewed members for it. It took months to create. We had a designer work on it. And it is a beautiful piece of content that I'm really proud of. Yeah, we have a few more ebooks that we are planning at the moment, so stay tuned for that. Right, next slide, please. So now you have written down a list of ideas under each category. You have got to set the table, aka create your content calendar. So in the same way that party tables are made up of all sorts of different types of food to cater to people's needs, your calendar should have a good mix of dishes or content cadences. Building up a content calendar starts with cadences. Simply put, a content calendar is the pattern of your posting or the frequency of your posting. Most thriving communities will have several content cadences stacked on top of each other to cater to the needs of your members. So in the way that kind of deciding on the different levels, you've got your light snacks, your hearty meals, your fancy desserts, in the same way that, for your time and energy, you can't be churning out a summit every other week. You need to be creating those smaller nibbles for folks to keep them busy, to provide value for them while you are, planning out your next summit or whatever the case is. It's equally as important to have a variety on offer for your members, right? Because me, for example, I'm not going to go into a community and attend an event right off the bat, right? You're asking a lot of me to sit through a webinar or read through an ebook, download something. That's a big lift for a member. Maybe all they're after is a little bit of a light lift for themselves. So that's commenting on a discussion thread. Maybe you have members who, for example, in a community like this one, maybe they're new community managers and they're hungry to learn everything. They really want to get stuck in and engage and suck all the value out of your community. Sorry, that's a terrible turn of phrase. And maybe they want the high level stuff. So you have to cater to different people and their needs and, where they may be in their lives at the time. Yeah, so setting your table is building your content calendar. And now, what I did want to talk about before we move on to the next slide is tools for your content calendar. This doesn't have to be a fancy content calendar tool. This can literally be, I use Asana. I love Asana. This can literally be a Notion calendar. That's a free tool. You could use an Excel spreadsheet if you wanted to, like a Word doc. But I think mapping this out and having this plan and knowing on Monday, this is what is happening. On Tuesday, we've got this planned. In 1 month's time, we'll be launching our summit or this event or whatever the case is. And that's also really helpful for your members when it comes to ritualized things, right? So they'll learn that this is the thing that happens every day on a Monday, and this is how people have responded to it in the past, and I've seen how it's been done, and I expect it. So now I can go in and interact in a way that I feel comfortable because I know exactly what's expected of me if that makes any sense. So defining your content calendar is hugely important. Next slide, please. So while it is hugely important, you cannot be too tied to your content calendar. There will be things that come up because a community is a messy space made of messy humans. Things are going to change, goals are going to shift, people are going to be people, right? So you have to leave space to behave like a human in your content calendar. And I'm not saying, okay, every Wednesday we're going to do something random. It doesn't necessarily have to be like that. But there will be times where you have to pause on your planned content, or you have to rethink your planned content. I had a chat with some of the guys we were working with our podcast on, and they were talking about another podcast they just worked on, and it was with the head of people at Zapier. And the whole podcast was about the fact that Zapier had never done layoffs. And they recorded this 2 months ago, and it was due to come out yesterday. And of course, I don't know if you guys have heard, but Zapier has just done a huge round of layoffs. They laid off, I think, 10% of their staff, which is a lot of people. So the whole podcast has to be scrapped. I mean, that's not a community-specific example, but you get the idea, right? Stuff happens, life happens, and we need to be responsive to it as community people. In the same way, something that happened in the community club was there was a huge wave of industry layoffs. A lot of our members were losing their jobs. I'm sure CLA experienced something really similar, and it's been a tough time for people. So we pivoted our content plans to job seeker resources. We came out with a careers ebook. It was also a few months in the making, and we did have that plan, thankfully, so that it would be a valuable resource. We didn't anticipate the layoffs coming, but we had some office hours. We had content from people who had been laid off and managed to find other jobs. So we met that need with a quick pivot. Something else that you may need to consider is holding space for members. If something happens in world events that you need to be respectful of, you may need to hit pause on your content. Like, nobody wants fun memes if something hectic is happening in the world. We hit pause on a lot of our content, and we created space where people could just chat when Russia went to war with Ukraine last year. It was last year, the year before. It's been going on for ages now, but it was a dark day, and people needed space to talk. We had some Ukrainian members in our community, and people who had family members that were affected, and it was tough. And we rose to meet that need, because in a community, your job first and foremost is supporting your members wherever they may be. On the lighter side of things, you should be able to just have fun and be reactive to things that are happening in your community at the time. So, bottom line, sorry, I'm going off on a tangent here. Leave space. Don't be too tied to your content calendar. If you have to hit pause, if you have to move things around, it's not the end of the world. If you have been proactive enough that you know that you have content planned, it gives you the space to be reactive with whatever is going on in your community at the time. Next slide, please. So this is my favorite thing, and I think this is at the heart of any good community content plan, is content created with members, right? And there are so many opportunities for this. This could be something as simple as you noticing a question coming up really regularly in your community. And you can kind of refer people back to the other thread or whatever the case is, but why don't you create a resource? Whether that's spinning up an event or creating a blog post, sending out a newsletter, whatever the case is, you're meeting that need, right? Even better, if you see a person responding to a commonly asked question with a wealth of knowledge, could that person be a subject matter expert for you? Could you interview them and help them put together a blog post? Could they host an event for your community? Could they host an AMA? A great example of how we do this at Commsor is we have our Commsor Guild, which was, it's something that evolved actually really organically. When I first started at Commsor, I knew nothing about community. So I had to get some help from the experts, and they were all in our community. So it was amazing. And initially it was kind of me just being like, hey, please, what do you think of this? Like, do you have anything to, can you add any value here? Can you give me a comment here? Like, just behaving like journalist hat on, asking, interviewing people. Sometimes it would be a case of interviewing someone and then ghostwriting an article for them. But then it occurred to me that community managers are content creators. So why could they not be creating this content with us? So we spun up a more formalized program, the Commsor Guild, which is where people can, we go to them with ideas, they submit ideas for us, to us, and we will co-create content with them, whether that's blog posts or events or hangouts, whatever the case is. We do also offer a small fee for that, so we pay them for their time and their expertise. I know that that is not something that a lot of resource-strapped community managers have at their disposal, a budget to pay folks. But I think you can get really creative about the value that you're offering members for, giving extra time and expertise to your community. Maybe that's, access to a paid product. Maybe that's sending them, a mug, a little bit of swag to say thank you. Maybe that's, I even had a community member once who spoke about buying members who really helped out a cup of coffee. I know it's not a lot, but just showing your appreciation like that goes a long way, especially if you want them to contribute again. And something else I will say is if you're creating content for a blog or something that's going to be indexed by Google, because content is so easily and pretty well created by AI at the moment, the general feeling is in the world of content marketing is that Google is going to, it can already recognize AI generated content. And the idea is that Google will soon start prioritizing content that has deep subject matter expertise in it. So comment from someone who is an expert in the area that the article is about. And that will rank that article, because that is something that an AI cannot create, guys. Yeah, it's pretty awesome. I'm very excited about this because this is just my default for creating content as a journalist. So that is awesome. And I think if you want to get ahead of the game, if you are working on a blog, you care about search engine optimization, this is absolutely something you have to be doing. And I think people that are creating content with communities, we have a head start in this kind of changing landscape. So it's very, very exciting. Next slide, please. I know I'm running up against time. I won't be too much longer. I'll just touch on this briefly. So I'm sure many of you are one-people teams. You probably manage big communities all by yourself, and that's hard. So you need to be repurposing wherever you can, and that can be something as simple as turning an AMA into a blog post, or posting an AMA on your blog where people can find it a little bit later, turning it into a newsletter. As I mentioned earlier, event recordings are something that work brilliantly on YouTube. There are some really simple tools that you can use to chop them up. I love a tool called Veed. It's VEED. There's a tool called Descript, I believe, that is amazing for video and audio editing. And you can really easily chop those clips up to post in your community if you want to prompt discussion, or post on social if you're looking to draw people into your community with high quality content. Podcasts can become blog posts. Blog posts should always be newsletters. The opportunities are endless. When you map out your content, if it's bigger content, you should always have a plan when you're creating it about where else this is going to live. So that can be something as simple as sharing a blog post on Twitter, turning that into a tweet thread or a LinkedIn carousel or whatever the case is. But you can get really creative and have a lot of fun with how you repurpose your content. Next slide, please. And that is my whole thing. Thank you guys for listening. I know I kind of babbled a lot there. I hope that was useful to you. If it was not, you can find some other really great resources at these links. You'll have the links in the comments, and you can literally access my Canva. I think I sent the wrong link initially. Community Club, C-School, I know a lot of you have done. I think I've seen some CLA members doing some C-School courses and tweeting about it. C-School is an amazing resource. We even have a self-paced course. It's absolutely free on how to create a community content calendar. It's a lot more in-depth than my weird snack analogy. So if you're looking for extra help, definitely go and do that course. The engagement playbook as well, you can download it for free. It's got a whole bunch of engagement plays from community managers, stuff that they've actually used in their communities that you can copy and just use yourself. And then the Commsor blog is where we create kind of our flagship content, our hot email content, and there's a lot of helpful stuff there as well. Yeah, next slide. The last slide. If you would like to chat to me, I love talking about community, I love talking about content. This is where you can find me. I'm not on Twitter often enough anymore. Twitter is weird, thanks to Elon Musk, so I'm more on LinkedIn these days. You can also find me in the community club. Just Google if you'd like to join, and email me anytime. Kirsti@commsor.com. Yes, the slides, I think, can you scroll up in the chat? Someone is asking about that. Where is it? Let me just send a link again.
All right. Thank you so much for the amazing session, Kirsti. It's really, really engaging. And I can really resonate well with it because myself and the other team at the CLA, we are trying to plan a, let me say, a new community, but for technical writers. So, as a technical writing manager, you need to be able to manage your technical writers, either the ghost one or the one employed by the company, and get them to have a content calendar. So probably you are managing a content for a company, so you need to help them prepare a content calendar, assign the content to people. Okay, what are the contents you need to write? What are the ones that you need to promote? Okay, this one has been written. Okay, so we need to push this, and okay, let's assign this to a writer. Okay, this writer is done writing. Then who is going to proofread? Who's going to edit? Okay, now we've done publishing. Which do we promote? So calendar is always perfect when you want to manage anything, either in the community or even in the project space. So it's really, really resonates well. But I have a question.
Yeah, of
But
course.
we actually over our time, but let me quickly ask this question. So the question is, let's say there's a community and the people are not engaging well with probably the community manager. So what strategy do you think can help revitalize and bring back the community?
That is such a good question, and it's a really difficult one because I think it depends so much on the community. What has happened historically? Has there been something that's put community members off? Or is it a case of that interest has just died? If that is the case, so another strategy that we like to use at Commsor and Community Club is called the stoplight method, right? So it's a little content audit. Basically, what you can do is go back in your recent history of community engagement. You pick 5 members that fall under the green category, so folks that are engaging, 5 members that fall under your orange category or your yellow category, folks that are kind of engaging, and then red, people that have just lost interest. And over the course of a couple of weeks or a couple of months, you track these people. What are the people, the green folks, interacting with, if there are any green folks, I hope. What are they interacting with? What is resonating? Can we be creating more of that? Can we engage with these people a little bit more to find out what they're enjoying? Then folks in the orange, similar. Where are they engaging? Where are they not engaging? What is like turning them off? Then folks in the red, and this is maybe something you can do with the orange as well, is have they ever engaged? Has there been kind of one thing that's really resonated with them? Are they open to meeting with you? I think this could be a crucial step, is meeting with members and just talking to them and asking them why they joined in the first place, what their expectations were and what they're not getting, what expectations are you not meeting. And mapping that over a course of like 3 months. Is there something that turns your orange members into green? Is there something that turns your green members into red? I think it's helpful to kind of zero in on like a specific microcosm of the community. So you've got like a good spectrum of people that are engaging and not engaging, and seeing what is resonating, and then absolutely talking to your members, talk to them, understand what they need, understand what they're not getting, is my advice.
Thank you so much for that. That helps as well. All right, so we will let you take 1 or 2 questions. So anyone here who has a question for Kirsti?
Yes, I'm sorry, I didn't read. Sorry.
Come again. Okay, I'm asking if anyone has a question from the attendees. Okay, it seems there's no question for now. So kindly engage with Christy on LinkedIn, and you can email her at Christy at Commsor.com. So she can also help with advice or help you with one thing or the other about your community. And I'm sure she'll be glad to respond to anyone. Okay, we have a question. So the question is, how do you publish content if your community is a small one with no socials?
So I think you're kind of asking like where should it live, right? So like if you don't have a website where you can publish blog posts, I mean it's easy to spin up socials for what it's worth, and I would argue that every community should have social accounts, like if you want to entice more members. Um, But there are a host of free tools that you can use if you're looking for a blogging platform for like content to live and live for a long time rather than just get lost in threads and forums and whatever else is the case. LinkedIn has free publishing, I think. They have like a mechanism for blog posts. Medium as well is great. And then I'm pretty sure if you're interested in sending out newsletters, I think Substack. I've never used Substack, but I know a lot of people use it. I think Substack is free. Substack is also an amazing content repository, so it doesn't like kind of land in people's inboxes and then disappear forever. You'll get like a nice little set of links for like this is the past newsletter, this is what it was about, so people can always go and find it. I think content that it is important to have a plan for content to live beyond a thread or a discussion that is going to disappear, especially if your community is very engaging and stuff gets kind of lost in the feed, or something like Slack where stuff gets deleted after 90 days or whatever it is now. I would really argue that your content needs a permanent home. So those are a couple of tools. If you want to drop me a message, we can chat a little bit more about this. I know we're up against time.
Awesome. Thank you for that. I've also tried using that newsletter strategy for a community that I'm currently volunteering for. So we are planning a newsletter plan. So we'll be dropping some content, helpful tips on the newsletter for our community members, probably that can revive the engagement. So someone has a hand raised, so this will be the last person we'll be taking. Nasif Akim, kindly unmute and ask your question.
All right, thank you. Good morning, Christy, and thank you, Billy. So I have a question, right? So, Christy, thank you. That was a very amazing presentation. Hold on.
Thank
So,
you.
yeah, you're welcome. So I have a question, right? The first one is it compulsory, like the content, like you turn up a community is based on what's like, it's based on like the focus of the community, like the content you create for a community. Is it compulsory? It is centered around what your community do, and that's one. And my second question is that is it advisable you diversify, like you treat other topics within your community? Is it advisable? And if it is, what are the approach one can use to like introduce them to the community at large? Thank you.
I'm gonna forget the second part of that, so why don't you drop that in the thread, and I will answer the first one. I think you were asking. I'm sorry that the sound went a little bit janky there, but I think you were asking is what do you write about, like, or what do you create content about? And I think, sorry, did you want to say something else? Because I saw you have a raised hand. No? Okay.
No. It was the hand that I raised before. It wasn't like isn't a new hand. It was the hand that I raised previously when I was asking the question. But you can go ahead. It's fine.
I'm sorry. I didn't hear what you said.
Okay, so I said my first question is like, is it compulsory the content you churn out for the community is based on what you do, like it's based on like the how would I put it? It's based on like the focus or the goal of the community. Let's say, for example, you're a community leader or a community lead for a tech community. Is it compulsory that you churn out content related to only technology? If it is, right, what is the approach to do, like to introduce that to the members in the community? Basically, that's what I asked.
Yeah, so I think, like, in terms of it being compulsory to create content in the community, I think it depends on your definition of what content is, right? So my definition of content is really broad. So in my mind, if you're starting a thread, a discussion thread, that's content. You're creating content with your members there, right? So in my mind, it is compulsory. In order to create value for your community, there has to be something there. There has to be something that people can engage with. What are they joining for? Otherwise, I think you can't. Maybe some communities are lucky in that their members join and engage and are creating their own content right off the bat. But I think that you need to be creating it from the get-go, right? And it doesn't have to mean like a huge lift. You don't have to be hosting a summit. It can really be like a simple ritual, a simple weekly ritual where you get people to engage on a specific topic or whatever the thing is. And I think when it comes to what your members are looking for, what are they joining your community for? What is your value prop? What are you selling? What is your community offering them? And I think that will guide you in terms of what content you need to be creating. But also ask them, if you have 5 people who are really excited about your community, ask them what they're after, and ask them what they want to create with you. I think is a really good first step. Does that properly answer your question? Thumbs up?
Okay, I'm sure that does. So I'm very sorry we'll be closing up the session for now because we'll be moving on to the next session, which is on another call. So if there's any other question, please reach out to Kirsti, and I'm sure she'll be glad to answer all our questions. Thank you so much for Kirsti, for taking your time to be with us today, and it's really a great pleasure to have you and learn from your wide experience as well. So thank you so much. And everyone,
Thank you so much for having me.
thank you so much. All right,
Bye.
enjoy the rest of your day. All right, guys. So we'll be moving to the next call. So the next call will be about empowering community engagement, leveraging technology, and effective communication strategy. So I look forward to see you there. So please engage with our social media content, which is Twitter. So kindly like, retweet, and also invite other community leader to come and enjoy part of what you are enjoying currently. All right, see you at the next call. Bye for now.
All right, that's fine. Thanks so much, Ayodele. Thank you.
You're welcome.